Hey, thanks for tuning in. In this video, we're going to talk about the issue of Israelite identity and tribal affiliation. Is it through the mother's line or is it through the father's line? The common rabbinic teaching on this issue is that it's through the mother's line. Is this according to what the law says, though? Is this according to the written Torah? Now, this issue is kind of interesting because there is not necessarily an explicit command that says what the rabbis say on this is wrong. There's not necessarily an explicit command that tells us that. So what we have to do is we have to look at what is going on, what is being done in the law, what is being done and what is being sanctioned in the law itself. Now, in some ways, it could be deemed that it's kind of obvious what is being done, but there are still some that are inclined to think that the rabbis have some kind of authority, so we need to be looking at some specific examples and actually showing how it is that it is being done in the commands, in the law, in the narrative of the Exodus. So the first issue that I want to talk about is the issue of the blasphemer. This alone I do not consider to be evidence per se. It's not proof of anything by itself, but it's definitely an interesting passage that is relevant to this issue. Of course, this goes on in Leviticus chapter 24, verse 10 through 16. Essentially, there is a man that is fighting with another man, and then at some point it says that he specified the name and he certainly lightened or he cursed. And he is then subsequently stoned after they consult God on what to do on the issue. Now, the thing is that it never calls him an Israelite. It specifies that his father is not an Israelite. And it also says that it calls him the son of the Yisraelith, so the son of the Israelite woman. This is actually what it refers to him as repeatedly in the passage, the son of the Israelite woman. This is kind of a unique example in the law because we don't see people being referred to in that way. But like I said, because it never explicitly says in this passage that he is not an Israelite, it never explicitly says that, it could be argued by someone that, well, maybe he is an Israelite even though his father is not an Israelite, just because of prior beliefs, maybe. And so I don't consider that proof by itself, but I think it's kind of an interesting passage to look at for this issue. Let's talk about the daughters of Zelophehad incident. This is something that appears in the book of Numbers. It appears twice. First, the daughters of Zelophehad are coming to Moses and asking, what are they supposed to do regarding their father's inheritance of land that he is supposed to receive? This goes on in Numbers chapter 27, and essentially what was concluded is that they are going to be receiving his land because their father had no sons. So since their father only had daughters, they are going to be the ones that receive the land. Now, this continues on into chapter 36 of Numbers. In Numbers 36, the elders of their tribe, of their clan, come forth to Moses. The elders of the tribe of Manasseh, actually their specific clan, comes forth and says, if they are going to be receiving the inheritance that their father was to receive, if the daughters are receiving the inheritance, they might marry someone who's not of our tribe, and therefore the land is going to end up in the possession of that other tribe. So clearly the fact that these daughters were of the tribe of Manasseh, of the tribe of Manasseh, was not sufficient to guarantee that the land is going to stay in the tribe of Manasseh. That was not what determined it. Obviously, in this case, the male line is determining tribal heritage. The male line determines who gets the inheritance and which inheritance they're getting. And so while the females in this case, the women, the daughters of Zelophehad, had received or were going to receive an inheritance of land, it was going to be passed on to their children, and their children were going to be determined their tribal heritage based upon their father. So that's the whole reason this issue was even an issue at all, is because the clan was worried that their land was going to be taken away from them and given to some other tribe. And so the answer that was given in Numbers 36 was that the daughters of Zelophehad and other people in any kind of similar situation where there is not a continuation of the father's line through sons, in such a case, they would inherit the land, but they were required to marry within their tribe to ensure that the land stayed in their tribe. Now, this is not necessarily disagreed with. The rabbis don't necessarily disagree with the law on this point. They do sometimes recognize that tribal identity comes through the male line, but there's still this issue and this idea that the female line, the mother's line, is what determines whether someone's an Israelite or not. There's still this belief in rabbinic Judaism on that issue, that it's through the mother's line. Now, one interesting issue with this is that we never see anywhere in the law where someone is described as being an Israelite but not belonging to any Israelite tribe. We never see any issue like that. And likewise, we never see any issue where someone is described as belonging to an Israelite tribe, and yet they're not an Israelite. So those are completely fantastic and fictitious categories that don't exist in the law itself. And further evidence in this regard, we're going to look at the ancestry given in Exodus 6. In Exodus 6, it mentions a couple of the tribes when it's preparing to talk about Moses and Aaron's ancestry. In the process, in verse 15, it's talking about the tribe of Shimon, it's talking about Simeon, and it's talking about his sons. In Exodus 6:15, it says that he had a son named Shaul, and that this son was the son of a Canaanite woman. It says that his son Shaul was the son of the Canaanite, the Canaanite woman. Now it's interesting that it actually had to specify this distinctly. And of course, Canaanites are not considered the same as Israelites in the law. They are treated very distinctly, suffice it to say. They are definitely not treated as the same people group. And so this Shaul guy, he was still considered, of course, the son of Simeon, son of Shimon. But as we go on into Numbers chapter 26, when they were actually counting and taking a census of the Israelites, it says in verse 2 that they are bearing the head of all the congregation of sons of Israel. So they're counting the sons of Israel. And if we go on into verse 13, in the continuation of the list of all of the sons of Israel and the different clans of their sons, it mentions once again Shaul. And it mentions his clan, the Shauli. And they are being counted. It says these are the families of the Simeonites. They are being counted as the number of people in the tribe of Simeon. They are being counted as Israelites. And we continue on into verse 51 when it's closing off the counting of the non-Levitical tribes. It says that they had counted the sons of Israel. So according to rabbinic view on this issue, if the Israelite identity is determined by the mother's line, this Shaul would be descended from Canaanites. He would not be an Israelite. Yet in the law itself, in what they're being commanded and counting the people and how they subsequently count the people, they are including Shaul amongst the Israelites and his descendants amongst the Israelites. So obviously the male line is what is determining Israelite status in this issue, because otherwise he wouldn't be considered an Israelite. He would only be an Israelite through the male line. And so he and his descendants are considered a clan of the Simeonites. They are considered of the sons of Israel. And so clearly in the actual practice of the law, in the course of the Exodus, the way that Israelite status and tribal lineage both are determined is through the male line. The male line is what determines whether someone's an Israelite. It's also what determines what tribe someone is from. There aren't any examples in this case of where the mother's line determines whether someone's an Israelite. That's not how it works according to the law. That's just rabbinic conjecture. What the law does and what goes on in the law is that it's through the father's line. It's through the male line. The system of the Torah determining the identity of whether someone is an Israelite or not, and to whether they are belonging to a specific tribe, is based upon the male line. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out some of my other videos where we talk about other Torah issues and commands. And make sure that you stay in touch and subscribe, feel free, so we can continue this discussion. Thanks for watching. Remember the commands. Peace.